You also spoke at the inquiry into nuclear power generation in Sydney on Thursday. What were some of the key takeaways that you mentioned?
Oh, well, I was speaking with two other excellent nuclear lawyer, Helen Cook and also Rob Parker. So, I mean, my point from the inquiry was really to say that I think that this sort of deadlineism we have, as in saying nuclear is too slow, is actually a form of procrastination. Because given that in the future we're going to have to shift to a grid which is nuclear and renewables, surely the only thing to do is to start as soon as you can. Not starting because you're worried you won't be done by 2030 or 2050 is basically procrastination, isn't it? And I don't really like that. I think we have to get started. I think the future is really scary because there isn't really much decarbonisation going on objectively in terms of our national, sort of international consumption of fossil fuels. So we have to prepare for quite a different future, which for me is going towards a net zero grid, which is nuclear and renewables is the best way to do that. So pleased to see, maybe we're not starting quite yet. There's a lot of hurdles to go, but I can see Australia is now thinking about it really seriously, and that's great news.
Not everyone, though, as we've been hearing, people are saying nuclear is not right for Australia. The cost, it's going to take too long. But I mean, you mentioned your thoughts on that in terms of the procrastination. We're going to be talking to a lot of politicians over the weekend on this very topic. But I want to get your expertise on nuclear because there's a lot to talk about. AI, first of all, we are seeing so many countries increase their nuclear capabilities, including Japan, plenty more as well. You would know far more than I do. So tell us what you're seeing in the AI space overseas.
Oh, specifically AI. So, well, the big four tech companies, most recently Meta, actually. So we've now got Meta, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft all announcing in the space of about a year that they're going to use nuclear energy for their newest data centers. And this is, I guess, not surprising because some of these data centers that they're planning now, especially as you mentioned with the use of artificial intelligence, are going to be mind-blowingly sort of huge users of energy. We're talking about gigawatt scale data centers, which are using more than small cities. So it's not surprising to me that these tech companies are now seriously considering how to get high availability, low carbon power for their data centers, and they're choosing nuclear. That's probably, well, there's been several big changes to the nuclear landscape this year, but that's one of the big changes, definitely, because they'll also it changes the economics of nuclear energy quite a lot because they won't be building exclusively from debt. And really, much of the price of the capital cost of a nuclear plant is debt. So if you have companies with a lot of cash looking to invest in nuclear, it'll bring the cost down for everybody.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. One big question as well many people are concerned about is the waste. What is the latest in technology with nuclear waste?
Well, it's you don't really need the latest in technology for nuclear waste. I think there's fairly good solutions already. So various countries around the world, Finland, Sweden, are building nuclear waste repositories. Specifically, Finland actually have a huge cavern under the ground where they're beginning to stack nuclear waste now. And it's extremely reliable. Nuclear waste properly stored is extremely stable. It's not an environmental issue simply because it's not in the environment. The nuclear waste properly managed is actually an incredibly environmentally sound prospect because it's captured at source. Like, you don't let it out into the atmosphere, you capture it at the point where it's created. It has very low volumes, and it can be stored essentially forever in stable geological facilities. So technologically, nuclear waste is sorted. Politically, socially, it's a difficult ethical problem, isn't it? I absolutely understand that there's this ethical problem of saying, shall we create something which is at its heart toxic, right? Nuclear waste is toxic, but do we want to create it? And I think the real challenge here is creating something which you have to be responsible for, right? So do we want that responsibility? For me, the trade-off between having a solid energy system that enable us to survive the next 50 to 100 years, having the trade-off of having to take responsibility for the waste of that system is a trade-off worth making. It may not be for all people.
Yeah, all right, and we do have to, we've got to wrap it up, but just quickly, we hear a lot about SMRs, small modular reactors, micro reactors, large reactors. Tell us about that technology.
Well, the SMR, right, it's an exciting new name for what is actually a extremely well demonstrated technology, which is the small pressurized water reactor. I think really the correct way to think about SMRs is a new kind of business model rather than a completely new kind of technology. So the business model, right, is that you should be able to build a nuclear reactor in a factory rather than building it on site with welders and concrete pourers and fitters. Build it in a controlled environment on site, bring it to where you need it, put it together and use it, right? The actual root technology, the reactor, is not really new. The business model is. So far, nobody has made that business model work, but there's several countries working very seriously towards trying it, like the UK, USA, Poland, and several more as well. So I have no doubt the technology will work. Let's see if the business model stacks up, but it's sure worth trying.
All right, Dr. Ed Obbard, thank you very much, as always, for your time and expertise. And yeah, we'll talk to you no doubt very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Janie.